To discuss 4 nominations. James Ives has been nominated to serve as Inspector General of the Department of the Treasury. And Rose Jenkins, Adam Landy, and Kashi Wei are all nominated to serve as judges of the United States Tax Court. I'll begin with the Treasury Inspector General. Inspectors General perform an essential oversight role across the government. At the Treasury, it oversees a department with a budget of billions of dollars and immense influence over the U.S. and global economy. They do important work rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. There's not been a confirmed Treasury Inspector General for nearly 5 years. It's critical that the next Inspector General is undaunted by political pressure and unafraid to confront big issues, even when it's unpopular. I'm a firm believer that tough oversight results in good government. Mr. Ives brings oversight experience from all over the federal government to his nomination. He currently serves as the Principal Deputy Director of the Defense Criminal Investigative Service, which is the criminal investigative arm of the Department of Defense's Office of Inspector General. He's also served within the Inspector General offices at NASA and the Government Publishing Office. He was a special agent with the State Department's Diplomatic Service, Security Service, and a reserve special agent with the U.S. Coast Guard Investigative Service. When you add it all up, he has more than 3 decades of experience in oversight in law enforcement, and that will be highly valuable in the job as Treasury Inspector General. Next up, we'll hear from our 3 nominees for the Tax Court. The U.S. Tax Court is the judicial backbone of the federal tax code. It is the best opportunity Americans have to dispute tax bills before they have to pay. And it keeps them from getting stuck in slow-moving courts when they have a tax issue that just needs resolution. So this committee is thankful to have 3 nominees willing to take on an important job, all of whom bring a blend of public and private experience to their nominations. Rose Jenkins brings 15 years of experience in tax law to her nomination. She has particular expertise in international tax law and administrative issues. She's currently an attorney in the Office of Associate Chief Counsel for Procedure and Administration. It's her second go-round with the IRS Chief Counsel, as she previously served in the International Office as well. She has valuable experience in the private sector, and she's been at NYU's Tax Law Center. Adam Landy has been a special trial judge on the tax court since 2021. He, too, has several years of experience at the Office of the IRS Chief Counsel, serving in Baltimore and San Francisco, as well as in the private sector. And finally, Kashi Wei is a senior legislative counsel with the staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation. At the Joint Committee, Mr. Wei's primary focus is on energy, tax issues, and research and development, but his background covers much more. In 18 years at the Joint Committee on Taxation, he's had a big impact on major bills, including the Energy Policy Act of 2005, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2012, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, and the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And I think I can fairly speak for the entire committee, Mr. Wei, that we are big fans of the staff at the Joint Committee on Taxation. We simply couldn't do our jobs without your professionalism and that of your colleagues, and you don't get a whole lot of recognition there on the staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation, but you've had a very good base of support from colleagues on both sides of this committee, and please convey that to the Joint Committee. You'll make an excellent tax court judge, but this committee will be sorry to lose your counsel up here on Capitol Hill. I want to thank and congratulate all 4 of our excellent nominees. Thank them for joining the committee this morning. I think we're going to have a good discussion. Senator Crapo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to our 4 nominees, Mr. Ives, Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Landy, and Mr. Wei. As Chair Wyden has just explained, today we will first hear from James Ives, who is nominated to serve as Inspector General of the Treasury Department. This position is responsible for keeping both the Treasury Secretary and Congress fully and currently informed about the problems and deficiencies relating to the administration of the Treasury Department programs and their operations, including the necessity for corrective action. Mr. Ives, given your depth of experience in the Inspector General community, you are undoubtedly aware of the importance of oversight and accountability within the executive branch. If confirmed, it will be your duty to lead efforts to investigate criminal activity and employee misconduct at Treasury's bureaus, combat waste, fraud, and abuse, and detect and deter fraud tied to pandemic-related legislation and other Treasury operations. I will be counting on an effective Inspector General to monitor these issues and ensure a professional level of work at the IG's office. Now moving to the other three nominees under consideration today, Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Landy, and Mr. Way, who have been nominated to the United States Tax Court. The Tax Court is committed to providing taxpayers, most of whom are self-represented, with a reasonable opportunity to challenge the IRS with as little inconvenience and expense as practicable. If taxpayers have a disagreement with the IRS, the tax court serves as a venue to get a fair, impartial, and efficient hearing. The tax court plays a central role in the maintenance of our tax laws, the complexity of which requires highly skilled judges. It is the Finance Committee's responsibility to ensure that judges nominated to serve on the tax court are prepared to tackle these complex issues. These positions are especially important to uphold the public trust in the tax system, which the American taxpayers expect and deserve. I thank each of our nominees for your dedication to our country, and I look forward to hearing your testimony today. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I thank my colleague, and I did a pretty expansive introduction earlier, but suffice it to say that Mr. Ives has decades of experience in oversight and law enforcement. Ms. Jenkins has 15 years of experience in international tax law and administrative issues. Mr. Way has 18 years of experience working at the Joint Committee on Taxation. And what we're going to do, we await Congressman Clyburn, who will give a formal introduction to Mr. Landy. And I think what we'll do is we'll just start with you, Mr. Ives, and at some point I would say to our witnesses, when Mr. Clyburn arrives, we will go to him to introduce Mr. Landy and then continue with our proceedings. So why don't you make your opening statement, Mr. Ives, and we welcome you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Crapo, and members of the committee, I am honored to have been nominated to serve as Inspector General of the Department of the Treasury. If confirmed, I look forward to working closely with this committee in fulfilling the Office of Inspector General's vital oversight role. I would like to recognize my wife, Jennifer, and our son, Jordan, for their continued support throughout this process. I also express my appreciation to my colleagues at the Department of Defense's Office of Inspector General for their encouragement, professionalism, and accomplishments overseeing our nation's largest and most complex government institution. I have dedicated my entire adult life to public service. Within 2 months of graduating college, I accepted an entry-level position with the Department of Justice. Just over a year later, I transferred to DoD-IG, where I served as a special agent with their law enforcement arm, the Defense Criminal Investigative Service, for over 10 years. I quickly came to appreciate the critical importance of the Inspector General role, seeing firsthand how well-executed IG initiatives can detect and deter fraud and abuse and return millions of dollars of ill-gotten gains to the government. My work entailed uncovering procurement fraud, healthcare fraud, cybercrimes, and diversion of sensitive military technology, resulting in successful criminal prosecutions and civil penalties and fines. By way of example, I participated in an exhaustive 5-year investigation that resulted in the largest healthcare fraud recovery in our nation's history at the time. In 2001, my life changed dramatically when I was detailed to New York City to assist with the government's investigation and recovery efforts following the September 11th terrorist attacks. Subsequent to the attacks, defending the country against additional terrorist events became DoD's top priority. I was then asked to serve as DoD-IG's full-time representative to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force upon returning home, where I conducted counterterrorism investigations on a full-time basis from 2001 through 2004. This experience taught me the value of interagency collaboration and the importance of ensuring OIG priorities align with our nation's broader objectives. In 2004, I was promoted into a DoD-IG headquarters position. Over the next several years, I held a variety of leadership positions at DoD-IG, culminating in my appointment to the Senior Executive Service in 2009. Throughout this period, I developed a keen appreciation for the extent to which an Inspector General can foster positive change by promoting efficiency within their respective agency. After serving for over 2 decades at DoD, I sought to diversify my portfolio and joined the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's OIG, where I led the Office of Investigations for approximately 6 years. While serving at NASA, I continued to engage in focused and objective oversight by overseeing investigations involving fraud, corruption, and other criminal activity. I was also afforded the opportunity to serve as the Acting Inspector General of the Government Publishing Office in early 2019, while the organization was seeking a new permanent Inspector General. In 2021, I experienced a homecoming of sorts when I returned to DoD-IG. I initially served as the organization's Deputy Inspector General for Overseas Contingency Operations before returning to DCIS, where I currently serve as Principal Deputy Director. Since returning to DCIS, a primary focus has been ensuring we provide timely oversight of DoD's Ukraine response efforts. I am extremely proud of the extent to which the entire DoD-IG workforce has embraced this critical mission. Having served as a member of the IG community for over 30 years, I am fully aware that the role of Inspector General can be a challenging one. IGs are unique in that they report to both the department they oversee and Congress. Successful IGs learn to master the art of respectfully and professionally engaging agency and congressional leaders while remaining independent, objective, and nonpartisan. I believe my experience has shown that I am capable of ensuring that the Treasury Department's OIG embraces these tenets. And if confirmed, I will continue to engage in the same aggressive, objective oversight that I have consistently promoted throughout my entire career. Thank you for considering my nomination. I would be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ives. We've had the good fortune to be able to have Congressman Clyburn here. He has been so helpful on many of this committee's issues. I can't even remember how many times we've talked about Medicaid, for example, an area the Congressman has a great interest in. And Mr. Landy, you are a lucky fella to have Congressman Clyburn introduce you after basketball games. My mother would always say, "Dear, I hope you're running with the right crowd tonight." If you've got Congressman Clyburn, you are, Mr. Landy, running with the right crowd. So, Mr. Congressman Clyburn, why don't you go ahead and introduce Mr. Landy? Then we'll go back to our order of witnesses, so my nominees are clear. We'll go to Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Landy, and Mr. Way. Please go ahead, Congressman Clyburn.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Crapo, other members of the committee. Thank you for granting me the opportunity to introduce and speak in support of Adam Landry's nomination to the United States Tax Court. Adam hails from the big city of Aiken, South Carolina. Although Aiken is not in my congressional district.
How many people live in Aiken?
Well, it'll be easy to count. But a little more time will be required than we have here today. Although Aiken is not in my congressional district, Adam graduated from the University of South Carolina and the University of South Carolina Law School, both of which are in the district I proudly represent here in this august body. Although Adam has been associated with members of the Clyburn family for most of his life, he attended high school and law school with a cousin, Courtney Clyburn Pope, now a South Carolina State Circuit Judge. Courtney's mother, Mrs. Beverly Clyburn, a wife of my first cousin, William, the second most senior member in the South Carolina House of Representatives, was his high school guidance counselor. And I think she did a pretty good job guiding him along the way. Now, my father drilled into me from childhood that experience is the best teacher. And that certainly is true with Adam. After an encounter which resulted in the taxpayer's fees absorbing nearly all of his tax refund for filing a simple 1040 EZ, Adam vowed to never let that happen again. As an attorney for the Internal Revenue, service, Adam has argued before the tax court and has served as a special trial judge in the same venue. He remains connected to his colleagues through his membership and service in the American and National Bar Associations. He learned how to prepare his own returns and became a preparer for his friends. As a law student at USC, Adam developed a love for the tax code and immersed himself in the intricacies of tax law. Adam began working with the Voluntary Income Tax Assistance Program, where he provided vital assistance to people who desperately needed their refunds to make ends meet, as we often say in the Southern culture. He continued his work after graduation and clerked on the State Circuit Court for Judge J. Michelle Childs, now on the prestigious United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Adam has a diversity of experience in the profession that make him an ideal candidate. I'm pleased to be here today to speak on his behalf, and thank you so much for allowing me to help Adam continue to make South Carolina and our citizenry proud. Thank you.
We are in turn, Congressman, very honored to have you here. And Mr. Landy, I think you've basically been described as a human version of direct file, because that is some send-off. And Congressman, you're welcome to stay through our whole proceedings. I know you've got a very busy schedule and calendar, but you are always welcome here, and appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks to the entire committee for indulging me for these few moments.
Thank you.
By the time I see you again, Mr. Chairman, I'll have an accurate count on how many people are in Aiken.
Great.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you so much.
We send you off. Thank you, Congressman. Okay, Ms. Jenkins. That's a hard job following Congressman Clyburn.
It is a hard job, yes. Good morning, Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Crapo, and other members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for holding this hearing to consider my nomination to serve on the United States Tax Court. I'm also grateful to the committee staff for their efforts throughout this process. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, accompanied by my parents, Antonio Jenkins Lara and Rose Jenkins, and my husband, Daniel Horner, whose encouragement and support has been unwavering. I would also like to thank my many mentors and other colleagues throughout my career who have taught and challenged me to be the best tax attorney that I can be and provided me the opportunities that have led to me being here today. And I'm grateful to the President for nominating me and providing me the chance, if confirmed, to serve the tax system of which I have been a part my entire career. I've had a variety of roles in the tax system and have always been guided by a drive to make sense of the tax laws and apply them in a principled manner befitting our system of voluntary tax compliance. I've worked with taxpayers struggling to get their arms around the tax consequences of messy facts that often came about as a result of simply living their lives and operating their businesses. And I have worked with dedicated public servants who work zealously to ensure that not only the letter, but also the spirit of the law is followed. Ultimately, the complexity of the tax laws, the broad and uncertain scope of facts that may be relevant to any particular question, and the inherent tension between the IRS and taxpayers mean that there may be many cases in which they do not see eye to eye. That makes the mission of the tax court so critical. By providing a national forum for the expeditious resolution of disputes based on a careful consideration of the merits of each case, it instills confidence in taxpayers that they will receive a fair hearing. And the tax court's efforts to ensure a uniform interpretation of the code provide certainty and stability that benefits not only the taxpayers that appear before it, but all stakeholders in the tax system at large. In addition to allowing me to develop a deep understanding of particular areas of tax law, my career has given me an appreciation of the differing perspectives, not only between the government and taxpayers, but also among different types of taxpayers. That understanding, as well as the experience engaging in the collaborative, analytical, and decision-making processes entailed, will benefit me as a member of the tax court, working collegially to ensure uniform application of the law. More broadly, my experiences throughout my career have instilled in me a propensity for close, careful listening and thorough, open-minded analysis and discussion, which are critical to fair and impartial judgment. If confirmed, I commit to maintaining these principles in service of the tax court's critical mission. I look forward to the committee's questions.
Very much. Mr. Landy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Crapo, and distinguished members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for scheduling this hearing and processing my nomination. Thank you to President Biden for nominating me to serve as a judge on the United States Tax Court. I am humbled and honored by the opportunity to continue to serve on the court if I am fortunate to be confirmed. Thank you to Congressman Jim Clyburn for his introduction this morning, and for him and his staff for their support throughout this process. As native South Carolinians, my family and I are grateful to the Congressman for his service to this nation and our beloved home state. I acknowledge and thank my wife, Courtney, who is here this morning, as she is my best friend, my fiercest defender, and ultimate cheerleader. My sons, Brooks and Miles, whom I love so much, are here today. Because of them, I strive to be the best version of myself daily. My father, Robert, is watching remotely this morning, and I thank him for modeling hard work and tenacity. I honor the memory of my mother, Darlene, a former public school educator who instilled in me the importance of obtaining an education and being there for people in their time of need, whether it was taking my siblings and me with her to deliver meals through the Meals on Wheels program or encouraging me to become involved with the United Way of the Midlands. She made sure we understood the duty to give back to our community and to serve others. To my siblings, Erica, Marcus, and Jason, along with extended family members, my mother and father-in-law, Ricardo and Diane Wingate, my church family and friends who are watching remotely, thank you for your love, prayers, and support. Finally, I would like to thank the Chief Judge of the United States Tax Court, my fellow judicial officers on the court, Anita Rizek, Legislative Counsel for the court, and my former supervisors, Eric Doring, Nancy Gilmore, and Thomas Mackinson, for their support during the public phase of this nomination process. As a law student and young lawyer, I clerked for Judge J. Michelle Childs, now, as the Congressman said, a circuit judge for the United States Courts of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, but then as a judge on the South Carolina Circuit Court. I learned from Judge Childs the importance of evaluating the parties' arguments thoroughly, conducting comprehensive research to provide sound legal advice, and administering justice with a calm temperament. This experience is why I desired to become a judge. As a special trial judge, I have strived daily to implement these traits of proper judicial temperament and skill to competently serve the public. Since concluding my legal education, I represented taxpayers and the IRS before the tax court. As a tax lawyer, I acquired an understanding of the challenges taxpayers and the IRS face while developing solid listening and communication skills, strong research and writing skills, and good judgment. As a special trial judge, I demonstrate traits of proper judicial temperament and skill in conducting motions hearings and trials and resolving tax disputes through written orders and published opinions. While the cases I will hear as a tax court judge, if I'm fortunate to be confirmed, will differ in the content and complexity from my current role, I will bring my current and prior professional experiences to this new role in adjudicating tax disputes in an impartial and expeditious manner. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Crapo, members of the committee, thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landy. And let the record also show that Mr. Landy's children have been perfectly behaved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Way, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Crapo, and members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for holding this hearing to consider my nomination to serve as a judge on the United States Tax Court. I am honored to have been nominated by the President, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you also to the committee staff for their assistance throughout this process. I am joined this morning by my wife, Diane, and my sons, Ian and Evan, whose love and support have been a continuous source of strength for me. I am also joined by my 81-year-old mother, who flew in from California. She raised me as a single mom on a secretary's salary before going to night school to become a computer programmer. Without her as a role model, I certainly would not be here today. I also want to acknowledge Tom Barthold, my boss and the Chief of Staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation. Finally, I am grateful for the numerous friends and colleagues who are in attendance or watching virtually. For more than 19 years, I have been serving the Congress on the staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation. During that time, I have worked under multiple chairmen from both parties, and my goal has always been to provide the best nonpartisan advice possible. As you all know, there is a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into every tax bill that comes up for a vote. The tax legislative process is one that requires thoughtfulness, patience, and dedication. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to help you prepare your legislation and advance your policies over these many years. As anyone who has filed a tax return knows, our tax system is complicated and can frustrate even well-intentioned taxpayers. The tax court affords taxpayers a crucial forum for resolving civil disputes with the IRS. It is my desire to contribute to the fairness of the tax system by helping to resolve these disputes in a manner that ensures taxpayers have the opportunity to be heard and pay no more than what is required under the law. If I am confirmed, I will take the skills I have learned on the Joint Committee staff to serve the country in a different capacity. In particular, I will continue to work thoughtfully, patiently, and with dedication to ensure fairness in the tax system. If confirmed as a judge, I promise to impartially apply the law to the facts before me in the resolution of tax disputes. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Now, I think the nominees know we've got some obligatory questions that we have to ask each of you. First, is there anything that you're aware of in your background that might present a conflict of interest with the duties of the office to which you've been nominated?
No.
No, Senator.
No.
Second, do you know of any reason, personal or otherwise, that would in any way prevent you from fully and honorably discharging the responsibilities of the office to which you've been nominated?
No.
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 Third, do you agree without reservation to respond to any reasonable summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of the Congress if you're confirmed?
I do agree.
Yes.
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 Finally, do you commit to provide a prompt response in writing to any questions addressed to you by any senator of the committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Wade, you respond?
Yes, I did. Yes, I agree.
Great. Thank you all, and let's go now to questions. Let me start with you, Mr. Ives. You are certainly well qualified, and I look at your experience and oversight and so many issues, and they've been on high-profile matters. There is one area, and I think we've indicated this to you, where we need reassurance before advancing your nomination, and that is we ask a lot of our Inspector Generals, and particularly the Treasury Office of Inspector General. They do great work at the direction of the Congress, ferreting out waste, fraud, and abuse on programs that are critical to our country. And the office does sterling work in that regard, and your resume makes me believe that you're well equipped to lead the office on these matters. Unfortunately, when it comes to issues of wrongdoing, corruption, conflicts of interest, or abuse of power among officials at the Treasury Department, time and again, we've seen the Office of Inspector General pull its punches. Investigations aren't thorough or stop just short of making tough decisions. It has been, and I want to be clear about it, disappointing, and it is unacceptable. So my question to you, Mr. Ives, is when it comes to difficult, high-profile issues, how can you assure the Finance Committee this morning that you'll be a tough investigator and speak truth to power, and when have you done so in the past?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. The short answer is I've established a very lengthy track record. Over the past 30 years, require the delivery of very bad news to the department or Congress for that matter. And many of those investigations, to be quite frank, have involved senior level officials. Case in point, you asked for an example, just last week, an investigation involving a very senior military official, now a former military official, who has been charged with bribery, was reported in media circles. And my organization played a very critical role in that investigation. Obviously, that type of investigation doesn't display the department in a favorable light. But I have never shied away from work that may require me to speak truth to power. It comes with the territory. And frankly, an IG would be wholly ineffective if he or she were unwilling to do so.
Thank you, and you can be certain that the senators on both sides of the dais are going to follow this up and keep that commitment that you've made today in place. The stakes are just so high. Thank you for your answer. All right, let's go now to our tax court nominees. It's my view that the three of you are very qualified individuals, certainly cumulatively. You have decades of experience, and I would be interested, we can just go for the three of you, Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Landy, Mr. Way, down the table, and I'd be interested in what past experiences are going to most shape your time on the tax court. Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you for the question, Chairman. My experience, particularly working on guidance and commenting on guidance from outside of the IRS, I think has been most relevant to my future work in that it has taught me the value of listening to different perspectives and understanding that the different perspectives shape taxpayers' interactions with the government. And I look forward to continuing to consider the different perspectives of various taxpayers as they interact with the government in front of the tax court.
And Mr. Landy, for your question, I'd like to hear what past experiences will most shape your time on the tax court.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, my past experience working as taxpayer counsel in private practice and also volunteering, as you heard this morning, with the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program has shaped me to certainly be able to understand the challenges taxpayers face, to ask the right questions, to elicit the answers that is necessary to provide sound legal advice and to provide a conclusion, hopefully a result that would be of assistance to them. And so those past experiences I bring with me to this role, in addition to my current role as a special trial judge on the court.
I was particularly impressed with that experience volunteering because when I was getting out of law school years ago, I got all the attorneys in town to volunteer to come and in effect help start the Senior Citizens Law Service. And it sounds like your background sounds very similar. Mr. Way, your past experiences shaping your time on the court.
Well, certainly on the staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation, we consider a number of different perspectives. We always try to be honest brokers in a nonpartisan way. We work with Republicans and Democrats and try to give the best tax advice possible. And I think certainly that experience has influenced me and my perspective. And if I was confirmed as a judge, I would try and bring that experience and that perspective and listen to all sides and try to be as fair as possible and take all different perspectives into consideration.
I think all four of you are going to serve as excellent appointees, and I look forward to supporting you, and we thank you. Senator Crapo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to say, first of all, to each of you that I appreciated Senator Wyden's questions and your answers to them. It was very helpful, and my questions are going to follow up in a little bit different way, the same approach. First, again, Mr. Ives, you've overseen accounts with significant interest from Congress in the Inspector General's offices at both the Department of Defense and NASA. While it's important for IGs to be independent from their parent agency's leaders, Congress is a very specific and important principal stakeholder of the results of IG reviews through committee oversight, and we take that oversight very seriously. how would you ensure that Congress stays informed on ongoing investigations at the Treasury IG office? And a follow-up on that is, can you discuss your interactions in the past with authorizing and appropriations committees in your IG roles?
Certainly. Thank you for the question, Senator. I, having served over 30 years in the Office of Inspector General of a couple different organizations, completely understand the relevance and importance of Congress's oversight role. So I will do everything within my power to ensure that Congress has the information they need in furtherance of that role. I have always taken that approach. With regard to my past interactions with Congress staff, it has been extensive. I have always been quick to reply when receiving requests for information from Congress. Obviously, there are some factors that come into play in the investigative world. You know, criminal investigations have to be complete before the information is passed along. But again, the advantage I have is having worked over 30 years in the OIG community, I understand that Congress's oversight role is just as important as the OIG's oversight role.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. You will get a lot of input and requests from us. And to each of the tax court nominees, each of you has already responded in your own way to the issue that I want to raise with you, but I'd like you to do so again with a little more specificity on the way I'm going to put it. If confirmed, you will preside over cases that involve taxpayers who often have few resources to deploy while making their case. Yet the Internal Revenue Service is a very formidable opponent on the other side of the case. How does your professional experience lend itself to ensuring that these taxpayers will be treated not only with the respect and dignity they need, but with the fairness that they hope they will get?
Thank you for the question, Senator. As a preliminary matter, I would be sure to ensure that taxpayers who appear before the court unrepresented are aware of the resources that may be available to them for assistance, including low-income taxpayer clinics and assistance from bar programs who may have pro bono programs. I would also be sure to ensure that they understand the process and that they know that they have an impartial and open ear in me, and make sure that they are comfortable proceeding before the court, because I think that's very important to ensure that taxpayers who are not as comfortable with the tax court proceedings feel that they are receiving a full hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Landy.
Ranking Member Crapo, thank you for that question. In my current role now as a special trial judge, I try to allow self-represented litigants to be heard. And I do that by making sure when there is a trial session that has been scheduled about 3 weeks from out of the trial session, I attempt to call and have a conference call with the self-represented litigants to, number one, introduce myself, as I am the presiding judge over your case, introduce myself, talk about the process, ask them if they have any concerns, and we talk through what are the issues that the IRS has raised in the notice of deficiency, and so they have an idea as to what they need to bring, if they've not already provided to the IRS for review. Make sure they have it trial so they know what the expectations will be. And at trial, I allow the taxpayers, petitioners, to proceed in a manner that is most comfortable to them. Certainly want to understand the facts of the case so that as a judge, I could apply the law as to those facts. So certainly keeping and being in communication with the taxpayer.
Thank you. And Mr. Way.
Yes, Senator Crapo, thank you for the question. Certainly, I agree with you that it's important that self-represented taxpayers have an opportunity to be heard in a fair and equitable way. My experience on the Joint Committee staff, we certainly have, sometimes we have tax LAs or people or outside groups that come in. Some of them are very sophisticated, some of them are less sophisticated, and we adjust the kind of conversations we have based on how much knowledge about tax that they have. Now, certainly, it's a different context being a judge with respect to a self-represented taxpayer, but I agree with my fellow nominees that it's an important issue and that I would listen and try and make make those self-represented taxpayers have have an ability to be heard and present their cases to the best way possible.
Thank you. Again, I appreciated each of your responses.
Thank you, Senator Crapo. Senator Grassley?
Mr. Ives, you talked about something you caught in the Defense Department, people stealing money. Was that lady that stole $106 million? No,
sir.
It was not. Okay. Now, for my first question to the tax court's nominees, I don't want you to answer today unless you can answer this question with full knowledge of what the law is. So if you can't, then answer these questions in writing. But I want to start with this opening. I authored important updates to the IRS whistleblower program, which included allowing whistleblowers to appeal award determinations to the tax court. More recently, I've introduced legislation with Chairman Wyden, Senators Wicker and Cardin to, among other provisions, beef up anonymity protection for whistleblowers appearing before the tax court. Whistleblowers are often take on great professional and personal risks in coming forward. So this is the question. Do you agree that protecting the anonymity of whistleblowers before the tax courts is vital to maintaining the well-functioning IRS whistleblower program? Start with you, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I do agree that in our system of involuntary tax compliance, it is very important to protect whistleblowers and the role that they serve in ensuring that we collect our tax dollars. I would need to consider more the countervailing factors in terms of privacy and anonymity of whistleblowers in order to answer your specific question.
Okay, Mr. Landy.
Thank you, Senator. I certainly agree with the comments Ms. Jenkins made. I have not seen your legislation you referenced, but certainly whistleblowers play an important role in our tax compliance system, as Ms. Jenkins said, and I would certainly believe that that is an issue that we can make sure that they have the ability to present their cases in a fair and impartial manner before our court.
Mr. Way.
Thank you for the question. I definitely agree with my fellow nominees and with the direction of your question, which is that whistleblowers are important, and it's important not just what they have to say, but to protect them so that new whistleblowers will not feel deterred from coming forward. With respect to your specific legislation that you've introduced, I'm not familiar with it, so I would have to review it and then respond in writing.
Okay, by the way, Ms. Jenkins, you're taking the place of Elizabeth Paris. And she worked for this committee a long time, and her trophy she carried around was a well-worn tax code, and she always had it with her. Okay, Mr. Ives. On March the 11th, 2024, I wrote all 74 inspectors generals requesting that they conduct a review of their agency's non-disclosure policies and similar agreements. I asked for that review to ensure compliance with the federal anti-gag law. Now, that is law today. That law requires that government policies and agreements include the right to report wrongdoing to Congress and an Inspector General and the Office of Special Counsel. On May the 10th, 2024, the acting Treasury Inspector General found 2 agreements not in compliance with the law and that the Treasury Department is working to update them. So my question to you, if confirmed, would you commit to ensuring all Treasury non-disclosure policies and similar agreements include the anti-gag provision that's required by law, including the 2 agreements identified by the acting Inspector General? And then a follow-up, would you also commit to ensuring Treasury employees are fully informed of their rights to report allegations of waste, fraud, and abuse?
The answer to both questions is yes, Senator.
Thank you. Now, also for you, an independent Inspector General is critical to effectively and objectively carrying out functions free from bias and interference. Inspector General must also keep Congress fully informed about the problems and deficiencies. So from that respect, I should have said I just associate my remarks with the chairman and ranking member. So a question to you, if confirmed, will you commit to providing independent and objective oversight? You probably already answered that question, but I'd like to have it answered again. And will you also commit to keeping Congress fully informed of agency wrongdoing, recommendations of corrective action, and Treasury implementation?
Yes, I will, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Now, to all tax court nominees, if you're confirmed to the tax court, you will hear cases involving many different types of taxpayers, ranging from large corporations to small businesses and individuals. Regardless of who might appear before you and what the issue might be, do you pledge to apply tax code as written by Congress and not attempt to legislate in your capacity as a judge on the tax court?
Yes, I do, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Okay. And my last question to you folks, the tax court is important since it allows petitioners to challenge and assess deficiency before having to pay that amount to the IRS. Many petitioners go to tax court, have little experience working through the dispute with the IRS, and may even represent themselves, following up on the question that Crapo asked. Without giving them an unfair advantage, how will you ensure that all petitioners get their day in court?
Senator, I would ensure that they're aware of the resources that may be available to them for support, and I would also ensure that they are aware of the processes going forward, and that they have in me a fair and open ear.
Okay.
Senator, as I said earlier, I would continue with my current processes of contacting the petitioners before trial to make sure they understand when, where their trial will be conducted, communicate what issues are at issue, and to make sure they understand the procedure and process moving forward.
And like my fellow nominees, I would try to make sure that particularly self-represented taxpayers have an opportunity to access volunteer resources or pro bono resources so that they can get representation if they choose. And if they appear before me and are self-represented, I would try to have some sort of pretrial conference or something, as my fellow nominee suggested, so that they are aware of what what will happen and how best to proceed.
Time of the gentleman's expired.
Congratulations to all of you.
And thank you very much, Senator Grassley, for asking the questions about the whistleblowers, and it's an honor for me to be your co-chair. Senator Warren is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to all of our nominees. Mr. Ives, you are nominated to be the Inspector General for the Treasury Department. Now, I've long been a supporter of IGs. I think their work as watchdogs is critical to protecting taxpayers and identifying waste, fraud, and abuse. This role is particularly important when it comes to federal ethics laws. It's an area where I've been calling for tougher laws and tougher enforcement for years, and it's an area where IGs need to do more. 2 years ago, an investigation by my office found that dozens of tax lawyers at Big Four accounting firms had taken key positions at Treasury and the IRS where they wrote tax rules that saved their former clients tens of billions of dollars. That's billions with a B. And then these tax lawyers went right back out the revolving door to their old employers, receiving big promotions and raises to boot. Mr. Ives, do you agree that this kind of revolving door abuse is exactly the issue that merits the detailed investigation by an IG?
I absolutely agree, Senator.
Good. Well, I asked the acting IG to investigate this revolving door scandal at Treasury more than 2 years ago, and he finally released his findings in March. And let me tell you, it was not worth the wait. The report concluded that Treasury employees rewriting our tax code for the benefit of giant corporations they used to work for couldn't be a problem because, and I quote, Treasury's tax guidance review process includes numerous stages of review and approval and multiple individuals. That's it. And because of that, the acting IG did not bother to conduct any audit of employer self-reporting of potential conflicts. He did not conduct a detailed review of any single agency policy or agency rulemaking. Mr. Ives, does that make sense to you? Do you think the mere existence of numerous stages of review and approval are enough to insulate the department from the impact of revolving door influence peddling?
Without speaking to the specific report, my answer is no. I am aware of many situations whereby there was a lengthy review process in place, yet conflicts of interest existed, and they were matters that warranted investigation.
I am glad to hear that. You know, this report and its conclusions were atrocious. A whitewash of what appears to be serious ethics problems at Treasury and IRS. I wrote to the acting IG and told him to withdraw this report and start over. And I'd like to move to have that letter entered into the hearing record, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I would like to have my letter to the acting IG entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Mr. Ives, if you are confirmed, will you take a fresh look at this revolving door ethics problem at Treasury?
I will, Senator.
That's what I want to hear. Thank you, Mr. Ives. You know, the work that IGs do is essential to ensuring that the federal government works for hardworking American taxpayers, not just big corporations and fancy tax lawyers in Washington. In addition to digging into this specific scandal with the Big Four accounting firms, I hope that more broadly, you will make ethics and conflicts of interest a priority if you are confirmed. It is critical that IGs investigate these matters, identify whether any laws have been broken, and this is important, report to Congress if you find that the current federal ethics laws are inadequate and need to be strengthened.
I agree, Senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank my colleague, and these are important issues, and I raised with Mr. Ives this question as well about this position, pulling punches in the past. So we're going to be making these a priority. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to each of you. Mr. Ives, I've got a couple of questions for you first. I want to talk about or get from you a little bit on this issue where Treasury changed the definition of obligation for the ARPA funds to allow states and localities to spend that slush fund that was paid out to them, to spend it past 2024, and then report that spending back to Treasury. So I would hope that you would look at what happened with this change of definition, and if you're going to investigate how Treasury took that action, didn't come to Congress, but took that action.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Candidly, I'm not currently working at Treasury. I'll need to be briefed more fully on that topic, but it appears to be a significant topic that warrants IG attention.
Yes, I think it does warrant the IG attention, and we would like to see that. The other that I have for you is on the unemployment compensation fraud that has taken place. When you look at that fraud that took place during the pandemic and the estimate of $135 billion on that, CARES Act provided $268 billion in expanded insurance benefits. And then we know that much of this fraud was conducted by some well-organized groups, and because the benefits were paid with money from the Treasury and not the state trust funds, states are having little incentive to go after this. And of course, Senator Crapo has legislation that would address this, but how do you plan to prevent these instances? What are you going to do in that investigation?
Thank you for the question, Senator. First and foremost, my understanding is that Treasury IG is currently prioritizing those types of investigations. If I were confirmed, they would continue to do so. I think there is more that can be done on the front end when those types of legislation are being put together and when Treasury is formulating its own policies as far as working with the IG to establish some controls that should be in place to avoid the fraud, which obviously is more effective than going after each individual case.
For our tax court nominees, one of the things we hear about in Tennessee is the backlog and the case backlog and getting this resolved. So, Ms. Jenkins, starting with you and down the line, what are you going to do to address the backlog?
Thank you, Senator. I do think, given the significant caseload of the tax court, it will be important to have a full slate of appointed judges. If confirmed, I would endeavor to maximize my efficiency and in terms of case management, courtroom management, chambers management, and also encourage the parties to maximize cooperation and seek to determine ways that I can run things more efficiently, perhaps deciding cases or issues on motions as opposed to needing to wait and conduct trials. So those are all things that I would try to do to minimize the backlog.
Thanks.
Thank you for that question, Senator. Certainly, my commitment to you is that I will work with the parties, have a speedy as we can trial, and to offer an opinion, an expeditious resolution of the case if that's through written order or published opinion in a short amount of time.
Thank you.
Like my fellow nominees, I would also try to expedite the trial sessions and the pretrial procedures to try and get things moving more quickly, and try to, I don't want to say, there's a specific docket and judges go to different cities, but I also understand there's an opportunity to do remote pretrial management, and so I would try and use those processes also to try and expedite cases.
Okay, Judge Landy, I understand that as a special trial judge that you have done a good bit of your work remotely and virtually. And I would like to hear from you, are there any differences that you've seen in the virtual work as compared to doing this in person?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I've certainly came on the court during the pandemic, and virtual was the option at the time, and certainly the court will continue to use virtual where in those cities where it makes sense, and for those taxpayers specifically where it makes sense. But my experience with virtual has certainly been similar to if we were in person, to offer the taxpayers an opportunity to present their case in the manner they proceed and to offer a fair and impartial resolution of their cases.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank my colleague. Senator Crapo and I have completed our questioning, but our colleague, Senator Grassley, has one additional question he'd like to ask of you, Mr. Ives.
Just to ask you kind of for your help, you know, I brought up about the $106 million theft that went on in the Defense Department. Now, you said you aren't investigating that, so obviously I can't ask you anything about that. But I've asked several questions of the department about how this could be going on for a theft over 6 years and nobody finds it. And so I guess, number one, if you could help get answers to my question. But more importantly, I sent along with my questions a 1997 report that I issued after some investigations about the DOD check writing machine that goes on in Cincinnati or Data, someplace in Ohio. And people were writing personal checks to their families. And so I investigated, I got an answer, I gave a report of what was wrong with the Defense Department management system, that they don't catch these things. And so I put out this report. So I read about $106 million over 6 years being stolen by one woman in the Defense Department. And so I sent this report along as a reminder that we've been working on this thing for a long time. And 27 years was a long time to get something done so the stealing doesn't go on. And I hope people will read that 1997 report and find out that things are really wrong in the Defense Department. Thank you very much.
I thank my colleague, and we go back to battles with respect to auditing the Pentagon and the like, and so I appreciate my colleague's leadership. Okay, so I want to thank all the members on both sides of the aisle who participated today. Based on what I've heard, I strongly support all 4 of these nominations. Mr. Ives has decades of experience and oversight in law enforcement, and I want to note that several of us have asked about what's going to be done if you're confirmed as the Treasury IG, and you've made it clear when it comes to issues of wrongdoing, corruption, conflicts of interest, or abuse of power among officials at the Treasury Department. If you are confirmed, the days of pulling punches are over there. And so we very much appreciated your response to you, Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Landy, Mr. Way. I believe you're highly qualified. You're going to bring decades of public and private experience to the tax courts. And what I would say to colleagues and staff who haven't been able to be here regarding questions for the record, the deadline for members to submit these questions for the record will be this Friday, June 7th at 5 p.m. And I have to tell my colleague that the deadline is firm. We thank members on both sides of the aisle for their cooperation. The committee is adjourned.